Frankly, I don't understand anything you've written in this essay. Thanks? No, that's not a good thing, Jen. Oh, it's not? But I don't understand much of anything in a Derrida or Foucault or even Henry James essay. That is why you've not been asked to write like Derrida, Foucault, or even Henry James. You've been asked to write a clear, well-argued essay on Tennyson's use of the lyric form, not, quote, the post-structuralist manifestations of Tennysonian lyric performativity, unquote. Whatever that means. It's okay. So why don't you just rewrite this and submit by next Monday? I look forward to reading prose I can actually understand. Oh, and Jen, word to the wise, try being a little less wannabe Jamesian and a bit more, how should I put it, Hemingway-esque. I know, mega orgs, right? Not exactly the sort of interaction you'd ever want to have with your professor, but that actually happened to me right in my first term at university. Looking back, it's hilarious, but at that moment, I just wanted to die. So in this video today, I'll be sharing with you all 2 of the biggest mistakes I made as an English major. And by the end of the video, you'll know how I managed to overcome them at the end. So make sure that you stick around. Mistake 1. Using difficult words just for the sake of it. Now, before I jump into my first mistake, a few words on the psychology of why I made this mistake in the first place. I went to a very competitive university and English was one of its top courses. Naturally then, most of the people who got in, both in general and for English, knew their stuff, with the occasional genius thrown into the mix who would probably go on to become the next Harold Bloom, Christopher Ricks, or Germaine Greer. So I was really anxious that I wouldn't measure up to my peers, and that basically I got in by fluke. Imposter syndrome hit me big time, and my defense mechanism was to up my game. So the way to do that, I thought, was to gorge on hyper-technical terms and to mimic the style of literary critics, which I then go on to regurgitate mindlessly in my own essays. This is why most of my essays from the first term of my freshman year are largely unintelligible, not because they are academically sophisticated in any sense, but more so because I was stuffing in the very last sophisticated word I could get my hands on. Of course, while I felt good about using jargon like Manichaean, deconstructivist, intra, auto, heterodiegetic, etc., all of which I didn't really understand, I soon realised that I came across as a bit of a joke in the eyes of both my professors and my peers. After all, the quickest way to expose one's inferiority is to put on a superior pretense, which I did with my hodgepodge arsenal of technical terms. Mistake number 2, letting literary critics shadow my own views. Now, the second mistake I made was not being confident in expressing my own views on literature. Now, I know this sounds ironic coming from an English student, but when I first started off studying English at university, I felt like my job was only ever to read primary works, cite secondary criticism, and to cobble it all together and write some sort of combined literature review. For some reason, I never felt like my personal opinion on a poem, a novel, or a play had any purchase or any place in the essays I wrote, and that I was playing the role of a moderator for established critical views to play out against each other in my essays. This meant that a lot of my earlier essays were essentially an echo chamber of literary critics whose works I'd read and consolidate, all without much of my own input. But as time went on and I observed how some of my other course mates wrote, I started to notice that they had no issues with saying exactly what they thought about a Shakespearean sonnet, a Dryden poem, or a Woolf novel. So if they thought something was good, they said so and gave their own views. If they thought otherwise, they criticised and argued for their stance, often with very little secondary criticism as support. Now, around the same time, I had also started to develop an interest in the style of practical criticism, and I soon understood that criticism is in fact more of a creative than a reactive task. And that was the point at which I stopped prioritizing other voices in my essays to give room for my own. And this proved to be the single most important factor for my improved performance throughout the rest of my course. So to all you aspiring English Lit majors out there, here's my advice. Believe that you have something worthy to say about anything you read and just go ahead and say it, as long as you can back it up with textual evidence and sound argument. Now, even if you feel like your response doesn't really make sense, writing it down is still far better than not sharing it, or worse, replacing it with something you found on JSTOR written by someone else. And finally, I love me some literary jargon, and it's definitely important to know technical terms as an English student. The point, however, is to use them only when they're necessary and when they actually enrich your argument. As always, if you guys found this helpful, please do hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to this channel for more useful English Lit resources down the line. I also welcome suggestions for future video topics, so go ahead and leave me a comment as well, and I'll see you guys in the next video.